Hello, this is day 53 of reading one canto of the Divine Comedy every single day. We are on Purgatorio, Canto 19, which I will read from the Longfellow translation before giving some brief comments. It was the hour when the diurnal heat no more can warm the coldness of the moon, vanquished by Earth or peradventure Saturn, when geomancers their fortuna major see in the orient before the dawn rise by a path that long remains not dim. There came to me in dreams a stammering woman, squint in her eyes, and in her feet distorted, with hands dissevered and of sallow hue. I looked at her, and as the sun restores the frigid members which the night benumbs, even thus my gaze did render voluble her tongue, and made her all erect thereafter in little while, and the lost countenance, as love desires it so, in her did colour. When in this wise she had her speech unloosed, she began to sing so, that with difficulty could I have turned my thoughts away from her. I am, she sang, I am the siren sweet, who mariners amid the main unman, so full am I of pleasantness to hear. I drew Ulysses from his wandering way unto my song, and he who dwells with me seldom departs, so wholly I content him. Her mouth was not yet closed again, before appeared a lady, saintly and alert, close at my side to put her to confusion. Virgilius, oh Virgilius, who is this? Sternly she said, and he was drawing near, with eyes still fixed upon that modest one. She seized the other, and in front laid open, rending her garments, and her belly showed me. This waked me with the stench that issued from it. I turned mine eyes, and good Virgilius said, At least thrice have I called thee. Rise and come, find we the opening by which thou mayest enter. I rose, and full already of high day were all the circles of the sacred mountain, and with the new sun at our back we went. Following behind him, I my forehead bore like unto one who has it laden with thought, who makes himself the half-arch of a bridge. When I heard say, Come, here the passage is, spoken in a manner gentle and benign, such as we hear not in this mortal region. With open wings, which of a swan appeared, upward he turned us, thus who spake to us, between the two walls of the solid granite. He moved his pinions afterwards and fanned us, affirming those qui lugent to be blessed, for they shall have their souls with comfort filled. What aileth thee, that to earth thou gazest? To me my guide began to say, we both somewhat beyond the angel having mounted. And I, with such misgivings, makes me go a vision new, which bends me to itself, so that I cannot from the thought withdraw me. Didst thou behold, he said, that old enchantress, whose soul above us henceforth is lamented? Didst thou behold how man is freed from her? Suffice it thee, and smite earth with thy heels, thine eyes lift upward to the lure that whirls the eternal king with revolutions vast. Even as the hawk that first his feet surveys, then turns him to the call and stretches forward, through the desire of food that draws him thither, such I became, and such, as far as cleaves the rock to give away to him who mounts, went on to where the circling doth begin. On the fifth circle, when I had come forth, people I saw upon it who were weeping, stretched prone upon the ground, all downward turned. Adhæsit pavimento anima mea, I heard them say with sighings so profound that hardly could the words be understood. O ye elect of God, whose sufferings justice and hope both render less severe, direct ye us towards the high ascents. If ye are come secure from this prostration, and wish to find the way most speedily, let your right hands be evermore outside. Thus did the poet ask, and thus was answered by them somewhat in front of us, whence I, in what was spoken, divined the rest concealed. And unto my Lord's eyes, mine eyes I turned, whence he assented with a cheerful sign to what the sight of my desire implored. When of myself I could dispose at will, above that creature did I draw myself, whose words before had caused me to take note, saying, O Spirit, in whom weeping ripens that without which to God we cannot turn, suspend a while for me thy greater care. Who wast thou, and why are your backs turned upwards? Tell me, and if thou wouldst that I procure thee anything there whence living I departed. And he to me, Wherefore are backs the heaven turns to itself? No, shalt thou, but beforehand, Scias quod ego fui successor Petri. Between Siestri and Chiaveri descends a river beautiful, and of its name the title of my blood its summit makes. A month and little more essayed I how weighs the great cloak on him from mire who keeps it, for all the other burdens seem a feather. Tardy, ah, woe is me, was my conversion, but when the Roman shepherd I was made, then I discovered life to be a lie. I saw that there the heart was not at rest, nor farther in that life could one ascend, whereby the love of this was kindled in me. Until that time a wretched soul, and parted from God was I, and wholly avaricious. Now, as thou seest, I am here punished for it. What avarice does is here made manifest in the purgation of these souls converted, and no more bitter pain the mountain has. Even as our eye did not uplift itself aloft, being fastened upon earthly things, so justice here has merged it in the earth. As avarice had extinguished our affection for every good, whereby was action lost, so justice here doth hold us in restraint, bound and imprisoned by the feet and hands, and so long as it pleases the just Lord, shall we remain immovable and prostrate. I on my knees had fallen, and wished to speak, but even as I began, and he was aware, only by listening of my reverence, What cause, he said, has downward bent thee thus? And I to him, For your own dignity, standing, my conscience stung me with remorse. Straighten thy legs, and upward raise thee, brother, he answered. Ere not, fellow servant am I with thee and with the others to one power. If ever that holy evangelic sound which saith, Neque nubent, thou hast heard, well canst thou see why in this wise I speak. Now go, no longer will I have thee linger, because thy stay doth incommode my weeping, with which I ripen that which thou hast said. On earth I have a grandchild named Allegia, good in herself, unless indeed our house malevolent may make her by example, and she alone remains to me on earth. So the first and biggest thing to talk about for this canto is the presence of the siren in Dante's dream. The siren, if you guys remember from the Odyssey, is a mythological monster that lures sailors to their death through its beautiful song. They hear it and they're entranced. They want to go to the siren on her rocky island, and they end up wrecking their ships, and she ends up killing and eating them too. So, why is she here? Well, Dante's no stranger to mixing in mythology with his Christian theological story here. So there's that aspect. But also, Virgil reveals later in this canto that what she represents is the desire for the more incontinence-related sins. That would be lust, greed, and gluttony. And he also says that she is defeated in the same way as Dante sees in the dream. So let's cover that real fast. In the dream, she appears to Dante as very ugly, until, it says in the Mark Musa translation, his own gaze fixes her, makes her more beautiful. And then once he has done that, she is able to sing, and then she's got him. That's very interesting to me because it puts forth again the idea that free will is supreme. She had no power over him until he gave it to her. And although that has no relation whatsoever to what happens with the siren in the story of the Odyssey, it does have something of a relation to the story of Odysseus, who also struggled with lust. Now, you remember at first in the Odyssey, Odysseus stopped at Circe's island, and he stayed with her almost a year, resting, eating, drinking, and, yes, loving her. She wanted him to stay forever. And then he was able to leave freely, right? But then the second time he encounters a semi-divine being on an island who wants to love him, he finds that he cannot escape. Now the door is closed. A door that he thought he could go in and out of freely, and take his pleasure and then leave, is suddenly trapping him. We see a similar progression of story here for Dante with the siren. This is the progression both of all sins and of all addictions. You think that you are in control until suddenly you're not. Not without help. And that's exactly what happens to Dante as well. A saintly lady appears, calls to Virgil, and Virgil breaks the illusion. He tears apart the siren's garment, which reveals her to be as ugly as she at first was. In fact, Dante says it's the stench of her that wakes him up. Virgil says later in the canto, "What you have seen is the sorceress, for whom the souls above weep, and how men escape from her." So the souls above, that's the souls on the higher terraces, the ones being purged of greed, gluttony, and lust. So that's what that part means. And how men escape from her. How did he escape? Well, somebody came in to help Dante who was willing to show him just how ugly these sins were. He reveals to him what he had chosen to forget in his moment of temptation. And it's true, for both sin and addiction, help is needed to get out. Then the rest of the canto is spent on the terrace of the greedy, and these souls are lying face down, looking at the ground. Why? Because that's where their focus was while they were on earth. They were not focused on the higher goods of heaven and virtue. No. Instead, they were focused on earthly goods, money, wealth, power, etc. And so they now lie on prone, with their faces down, building desire for the thing that they had ignored during their life, which is good. It is actually reparative. I'm comparing it in my head briefly to the punishment of the greedy in the Inferno, in which they constantly just go back and forth around the wheel of fortune, that which they had fought against their entire life. But this one isn't just repetitive and doesn't go anywhere. This one does have a purpose. It builds in the soul the desire to look up, which is exactly what they all need to continue to ascend the mountain, to continue to ascend toward God. It's a very fitting contrapasso, and one that has a clear medicinal effect, as opposed to the punishment found for the same sins in the Inferno. That's all for today, though. I'll see you tomorrow.